Who knows your end? Buddhism's no truth. Chapter 1. The question nobody can answer. Have you ever stared at the night sky, the vast expanse of stars stretching out before you, and felt a sense of smallness, a sense of wonder? And in that moment, perhaps, a question bubbled up. When will my time here, under these stars, come to an end? It's a natural question, a human question. We mark beginnings with such fanfare: birthday parties, graduation ceremonies, wedding bells. But the ending? That's often shrouded in silence, in uncertainty, in fear. We might get a glimpse of it in a doctor's office, hearing words like prognosis or life expectancy. Or maybe it's a loved one facing a serious illness, and we're desperately searching for answers, for some kind of certainty in a sea of doubt. We want to know. We crave it. We've built entire industries around this desire to predict the future. From the frantic energy of stock trading, where fortunes are made and lost on split-second guesses, to the meticulous calculations of retirement planning, trying to secure our comfort decades down the line. We pour billions into hurricane predictions and climate change models, striving to anticipate and control the forces of nature. But can any of it truly tell us the moment? The exact, precise instant when our story ends? To this fundamental human question, Buddhism offers a clear, profound, and perhaps surprising answer. No. Not a no of despair, but a no of liberation. The Buddha, the awakened one, understood this fundamental truth. The end is unknowable. Not just unknowable to us, but unknowable to anyone. There's a powerful story about a monk named Malunkyaputta, a restless and impatient soul, always searching for answers to the ultimate questions. He came to the Buddha, who was seated peacefully under the shade of a Bodhi tree, and essentially demanded, "Tell me the secrets of the universe. Is it eternal? What happens after death? Give me answers, or I'm leaving this whole spiritual path." The Buddha's response? Silence. He didn't rebuke Malunkyaputta. He didn't dismiss his questions. He simply didn't answer them. Later, he explained why. He wasn't saying these questions are unimportant. He was showing that clinging to answers about things we can't know only leads to more suffering. He redirected Malunkyaputta and us towards a more fruitful path. Why does this resonate so deeply? Because we're wired to seek certainty. We fear death. We fear the unknown. We fear the loss of control. We want to believe that we can somehow manage, predict, or even put off what will happen. We build our lives around this desire for control, this illusion of predictability. But it is an illusion. And when that illusion shatters, when illness strikes, when loss occurs, when the unexpected happens, we're often left feeling lost and overwhelmed. Buddhism offers a different way. It invites us to release that desperate grip on certainty, to accept the fundamental truth of impermanence. It's not about resignation, it's about freedom. It's about recognizing that the only moment we truly have is this one. So, perhaps the real question isn't, when will it end? Or, how will it end? Perhaps the real question is, what am I doing with this precious, unrepeatable moment right now? Instead of searching for answers outside yourself, try turning inward. What can you appreciate in this very breath? In the feeling of your feet on the ground? In the simple fact of being alive? The next time you find yourself worrying about the future, gently bring your attention back to your breath. It's a constant reminder that you're here, you're alive, and that's enough. This acceptance of the unknown, this embracing of impermanence, is a core teaching in Buddhism. And it's precisely this impermanence, this constant flow of change, that we'll explore next. Because it is in understanding impermanence that we can begin to find true freedom. Chapter 2. Impermanence, the foundation of change. We live in a world of constant motion, a world of becoming rather than being, a world where the only constant is change itself. This fundamental truth, this inescapable reality, is what Buddhism calls Anicca, impermanence. It's not simply about things ending, although ending is certainly a part of it. It's about the continuous, unceasing process of change that defines all phenomena. Our thoughts, feelings, bodies, relationships, even the stars in the sky, are constantly changing. It's about understanding that constant change is the fundamental law, and that ending is simply one aspect of this. It is important to approach this concept with care. It's not about saying that life is meaningless or hopeless, because things don't last. It's about understanding the nature of reality as it is, so we can free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. The Buddha taught, Digha Nikaya, all conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence. Let's break that down. Conditioned things, often translated as sankhara in Pali, are not just things that are created in a simple sense. They are phenomena that arise in dependence on causes and conditions. They are interdependent. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything is connected and constantly influencing everything else. This is a profound concept, closely related to the core Buddhist teaching of dependent origination, pratitya samutpada. And because all things are conditioned, arising from causes, they are also subject to change and cessation. The strive on with diligence part is crucial. It's not a call to passively accept fate. It's a recognition that because every moment is unique and impermanent, every moment is an opportunity to practice, to cultivate wisdom and compassion, to move towards liberation from suffering. The story about Ananda and the storm is often told. They were traveling when a violent storm devastated a village. Ananda, witnessing the destruction and suffering, was deeply distressed. He turned to the Buddha, his heart aching, and asked, "Why? Why do good people suffer? Why is there so much pain?" The Buddha did not offer a simple, dismissive answer. He acknowledged Ananda's pain. He met him in his grief. He didn't say, "It's just the way things are. Get over it." Instead, he pointed to the underlying reality. All things pass. He offered this not as a cold philosophical statement, but as a foundation for understanding. He then likely guided Ananda towards ways to help those affected, to offer practical assistance and comfort, demonstrating that understanding impermanence leads to compassionate action, not passive resignation. So how do we live with this understanding of impermanence? It's not about holding things lightly in a superficial or detached way. It's about cultivating non-attachment. This doesn't mean we don't care about anything or anyone. It means we recognize that everything is changing, and we don't cling to things as if they were permanent. We love deeply, but we understand that relationships will evolve. We work hard, But we don't define our worth by our achievements. We appreciate beauty, but we don't grasp at it, trying to hold on to it forever. It is not about flowing with the current to the point of passivity. It's about skillful engagement with the realities of life. It's about recognizing that difficulties and challenges are sure to come, and developing the resilience and wisdom to navigate them. It is important to remember the Four Noble Truths, of which impermanence is a key element. It's not enough to understand impermanence. We must also understand the causes of suffering, the second noble truth, the possibility of liberation from suffering, the third noble truth, and the path to liberation, the fourth noble truth. This is the complete picture. Impermanence, understood correctly, is not a cause for despair, but a call to action, a call to live fully, wisely, and compassionately in the face of constant change. Chapter 3. Who Claims to Know? Ego versus Reality. We crave the certainty of knowing things. We build our lives on plans, projections, and assumptions about the future. We map out careers, envision relationships, and set goals, all fueled by a sense that we have some control, some understanding of what lies ahead. We might even catch ourselves saying, "I know I'll be happy when," or "I know this is the right path." But where does this sense of knowing really originate? And how reliable is it truly? Buddhism challenges this very foundation of knowing, particularly when it comes to the profound, ultimately unanswerable questions. It points to the ego, that persistent sense of I, as the primary architect of this often illusory certainty. The ego constructs elaborate narratives about who we are, what we desire, and where we're headed. These stories can provide comfort and a sense of stability, but they can also be profoundly limiting. The ego might tell us, "I'm a failure," or "I'm not good enough," or "I need to be perfect to be loved," or conversely, "I'm better than everyone else," or "I deserve all the good things." These are just stories, but we often mistake them for reality. Consider the seemingly simple statement, "I'll live to be 80. It might be based on family history or lifestyle choices, but it's fundamentally a prediction, an assertion of control over something inherently uncontrollable. It's the I attempting to define its boundaries, to stake its claim on the future. Or the comforting thought, "I'll die peacefully, surrounded by loved ones." It's a beautiful aspiration, but it remains just that, a wish projected by the ego's desire for a specific, controlled outcome. This isn't confined to our personal lives. We extend this knowing into the spiritual realm. Many find solace in beliefs about all-knowing deities, divine plans, or predetermined destinies. "It's all part of God's plan," we might hear, or "God knows my end." Buddhism offers a complementary perspective, one that can enrich our understanding of faith and belief. It suggests that even these deeply held convictions, while potentially comforting, can also be a form of clinging. Another way the ego seeks to grasp certainty in a fundamentally uncertain world. At the core of this clinging is the illusion of a separate, permanent self, the ego. Buddhism teaches the concept of anatta, or no self, which means there is no unchanging, inherent I that exists independently. The ego is a construct, a collection of thoughts, feelings, and sensations that are constantly changing. Recognizing this, truly understanding anatta, is a key to liberating ourselves from the grip of the ego and its relentless need to know. The Buddha, in the Sutta Nipata, stated powerfully, "To cling to views is suffering." This applies to any fixed belief, any rigid idea about ourselves, the world, or the divine. Whether it's a self-created narrative about our future, or a belief in a preordained destiny, the act of clinging, of holding tightly to knowing, is itself a source of suffering. A story illustrates this beautifully. Sariputta, a prominent disciple of the Buddha, encountered a spiritual seeker from another tradition. This wanderer proudly declared, "The gods know my fate. They know precisely when and how I will die." Sariputta, with gentle but penetrating wisdom, responded, "Do those gods walk in your shoes? Do they experience your breath? Do they feel your joys and your sorrows?" The wanderer was silenced, because even if higher powers exist, the immediacy of our experience, our thoughts, our actions, our choices, remains here with us. This resonates deeply in our modern data-driven world. We rely on forecasts and projections, weather apps, economic models, medical diagnoses. These tools have their uses, certainly, but they are not us. They are not a substitute for the direct, lived experience of being present in this moment. Buddhism cuts through the illusion of control, the illusion of absolute knowing. It is important to distinguish between this kind of knowing and true wisdom. Prajna. Wisdom, in the Buddhist sense, is not about accumulating information or predicting the future. It's about a deep, intuitive understanding of the nature of reality, an understanding of impermanence, of suffering, and of the path to liberation. It's not about knowing the answers. It's about being present with the questions. It's about dropping the need to know, to predict, to control. It is instead about living fully, openly, and wisely in the face of uncertainty. Chapter 4. The Peace of Not Knowing. What if the greatest freedom lies not in having all the answers, but in embracing the questions? What if the deepest peace comes not from controlling life, but from surrendering to the flow of life, with all its ups and downs? This might seem counterintuitive. We're conditioned to seek certainty, to plan, to predict, to know. But Buddhism suggests a radical alternative: finding peace in not knowing. This isn't about ignorance or apathy. It's not about sticking our heads in the sand and pretending everything is fine. It's about a profound shift in perspective. It's about recognizing that the relentless pursuit of certainty is often a source of anxiety and suffering, and that letting go of that pursuit can be incredibly liberating. Think about the weight of expectations. The expectations we place on ourselves. The expectations others place on us. I should be successful by this age. I should have this much money. I should be in a perfect relationship. These shoulds are often rooted in a desire to control the future, to know how things will turn out. But what happens when life doesn't cooperate? What happens when things don't go according to plan? We feel stressed, disappointed, even like failures. The Buddha, in the Samyutta Nikaya, taught, "When you release clinging, you find calm." This applies directly to our clinging to the need to know. When we stop trying to force life into a predetermined mold, when we stop demanding certainty, a sense of spaciousness emerges, a sense of ease, a sense of peace. This isn't passive resignation. It's not about giving up on our goals or dreams. It's about holding them lightly, pursuing them with diligence, but without being attached to the outcome. It's about recognizing that the journey itself is what matters, not just the destination. And that the journey is full of twists and turns, unexpected detours, and unforeseen challenges. There's a story about the Buddha in his later years. He was resting under a tree, his body frail and weakened by age. Some of his monks were whispering amongst themselves, concerned about his declining health, perhaps speculating about how much time he had left. The Buddha overheard them, and with a gentle smile, he said, "This form is like a worn-out cart. It creaks, it moves, it stops." There was no fear in his voice, no resistance, just clear-eyed acceptance of the natural process of aging and death. He wasn't clinging to the idea of a long life or a painless exit. He was simply present with the reality of his situation. This is the peace of not knowing. It's not about denying what will surely happen. It's about meeting it with grace and equanimity. We can contrast this with the dominant approach of modern science, which is often focused on control, on conquering disease, on extending lifespan. These are noble pursuits, of course. But Buddhism offers a different, complementary perspective. It suggests that true well-being comes not just from extending life, but from accepting its inherent impermanence. Both science and Buddhism seek truth. One often rests in finding solutions, while the other rests in understanding the nature of existence. So how do we cultivate this peace of not knowing? It starts with awareness, paying attention to our thoughts, our feelings, our reactions. Noticing when we're clinging to certainty, when we're trying to control the uncontrollable. And then, gently, letting go, breathing, returning to the present moment. This is where meditation, the practice of cultivating mindful awareness, becomes invaluable. Through regular meditation, we can train our minds to be more present, more accepting, and less reactive to the ever-changing flow of experience. It's not about having all the answers. It's about trusting the unfolding of life, even when we don't know what's around the corner. It's about finding joy in the simple things, appreciating the beauty of the present moment, and cultivating a sense of inner peace that is not dependent on external circumstances. Peace grows in those spaces when we can let the questions simply be questions. Chapter 5. Living Fully Without the End in Sight. If the end is truly unknowable, not just to us but to anyone, then what are we left with? What becomes the guiding principle of our lives? Buddhism's answer is both simple and profound. Live fully, live now, live with kindness and wisdom. This isn't a call to hedonism or reckless abandon. It's not about ignoring the future or shirking responsibility. It's about recognizing that the present moment is the only moment we truly have, the only moment we can truly live, and that how we live this moment, how we choose to act, to think, to be, is what ultimately shapes our experience, regardless of when or how it ends. The Buddha, in the Dhammapada, offered this concise summary of his teachings. Do good, purify the mind. This is my teaching. It's not about elaborate rituals or complex doctrines. It's about cultivating goodness in our actions, in our words, and in our thoughts. It's about transforming our minds, freeing them from greed, hatred, and delusion. This is the path, the practice, the way to live fully, regardless of the unknown future. Consider a story, poignant one, from the Buddha's final days. A blacksmith named Kunda offered him a meal, often described as Sukkara Madhava. There's debate about what exactly this was. Some say it was a type of mushroom, others a type of pork. What's clear is that, for whatever reason, the meal did not agree with the Buddha, who was already frail. Whatever the cause, it hastened his passing. But the Buddha, even in his weakened state, ate the food with gratitude. He thanked Kunda, assuring him that his act was one of kindness, not harm. Think about that. Even facing his own impending death, the Buddha's focus was not on himself, not on the when or the how, but on the quality of his interaction with Kunda. He saw the kindness in Kunda's offering, and he responded with compassion. He remained present, fully engaged in the moment, even as his life was drawing to a close. He didn't ask heavens for a sign. His kindness guided him. This is a powerful lesson for us. It's not about chasing after some distant, imagined future. It's about cultivating kindness, compassion, and wisdom in this moment. And Buddhism offers a beautiful framework for this, the Brahma Viharas, often called the Four Immeasurables. These are metta, loving kindness; karuna, compassion; mudita, appreciative joy; and upekkha, equanimity. These are not just abstract ideals. They are qualities we can actively cultivate in our daily lives, in our interactions with others, and in our own inner world. We live in a world obsessed with measuring, quantifying, and predicting. Science maps our genes, tracks our health, and attempts to extend our lifespans. These are valuable endeavors. But Buddhism offers a different kind of map, a map of the heart, a map of the mind. It's a map that guides us not towards a specific destination, but towards a way of being. The end, ultimately, remains a shadow, a mystery. We can't control it. We can't predict it. But we can control how we live each moment leading up to it. We can choose to live with kindness, with compassion, with wisdom. We can choose to be present, to be mindful, to be awake. That's the invitation. That's the challenge. That's the path to a truly meaningful life, a life lived fully, without the end in sight. Let kindness, not some far-off future, be your guide.